I recently was hanging out with my good friend and confidant, Grania Blumenthal, and during the course of the evening I suggested that we go for a bourbon, specifically Wild Turkey 101, one of my favourite whiskies ever. She was in favour of the idea and replied to me saying, "Did you know that all bourbon is made in Kentucky?" I replied to her that this was a very common misconception and this wasn't the case. She replied that she was positive as she knew her whiskey. What followed was a lively and spirited debate in which I discussed the finer points of the regulations surrounding bourbon production in the US, covering grains, barrels and alcohol percentages. She took this well and came out of the experience with a greater depth of knowledge than she had before, and she's looking forward to trying some new bourbons again in the very near future. At least when she gets out of the coma. I may be going to prison. I kind of always forget how much I genuinely love bourbon, and I think that's because it's such a unique and distinct style of whiskey. I mean, first of all, it can't be made anywhere else in the world other than the United States. And then there's a couple of regulations that govern its production. Now, most of them are very long, boring and uninteresting, but the ones to remember as a whiskey drinker are that bourbon has to be made of a minimum of 51% corn, and it has to be aged in virgin oak every single time. Virgin oak is a barrel that has never been before, so it's full of flavour and spunk. Well, actually no, if it's never been it's not full of spunk. If it's aged for more than 2 years, it could be referred to as a straight bourbon, and if it's aged for less than 2 years, it's considered a bisexual bourbon. What is that, a fucking slide whistle? I always like to keep at least one bottle of bourbon on my shelf, and the current one that I'm drinking is one of my favourites, Wild Turkey 101. The Wild Turkey range represents fantastic value for money, and that's whether you're a seasoned whiskey drinker or someone who's getting into whiskey at an entry level. I think Wild Turkey covers all those bases. And what's interesting about them as a distillery is how they operate within the confines of the bourbon regulations. One of the regulations states that you can't distill your spirit past 80% alcohol or 160 proof. In the case of Wild Turkey, the most I've ever heard them distilling their base spirit to is about 64%, but I could be wrong because I did very little research to find that out. But when you don't distill to too high an alcohol percentage, you maintain a lot more of the flavours. For comparison, a lot of Irish whiskies distill to 80, 84% and above. I actually remember the first time I ever tried Wild Turkey 101, and I was literally taken aback by how good it was. And I remember there being a lot of complexity and depth of flavour for a whiskey that was only about €40 at the time. When I first tried it, I got spice, followed by dryness, followed by oak, and then a sweet caramel butterscotch flavour come in at the end. And they're flavours that have remained consistent every time I've had Wild Turkey 101. It's great to see a whiskey with that depth of flavour. I don't want to say beyond its years, but definitely beyond its price point, because as I said, it's not an expensive bottle of whiskey, even by Irish standards, where things are a little bit more expensive here. So the 101 in the name refers to the fact that this is 101 proof, or 50.5% alcohol, because Americans call it proof for some reason, and leave it to the Americans to take a perfectly rational and explainable system of measurement that the Europeans use and decide to just use some fucking gobbledygook instead. I'm looking at you, Fahrenheit, you motherfucker. What I enjoy about the 101 in particular is because it's bottled at that slightly higher strength, it maintains a lot more of the flavour within the whiskey, but you're actually not getting really any burn or any harshness. I think 50.5 is a good strength for a whiskey to be generally, and in the case of Wild Turkey 101, it works out really well. So that's Wild Turkey 101, a phenomenal bourbon at a great price. I think it's one that anybody should be able to enjoy, whether you're a seasoned whiskey drinker or somebody who's looking to dip your toe into whiskey. Although if you're looking to dip your toe into whiskey, I suggest you drink it instead, because that way is weird. Thanks so much for watching this episode. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Come back every Friday, and don't forget, this tastes like... Oh fuck.
Round 2, motherfucker! What are you drinking? Scotch?
That's wrong. Oh, that hurts more than the punches. Ah, fuck.
Open one day, you will see. You'll never find a guy like me.